What's up, you guys? Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about the fight. Everybody has been talking about in the mixed martial arts community for, I guess, 6 days. Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Now, of course, Kamaru Usman won the fight, which is honestly no surprise to me. I called it. I had another video up that I put up, and it was about, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal and who I thought was going to win. And who I thought was going to win was Kamaru Usman by way of decision. I call that one. And simply because the man's wrestling, his clinch ability, not just his wrestling on the ground, his top game, but also his clinching. And not just his wrestling and his clinch game, but also the way he implements his striking game with those elements. It really shined through tonight. And this fight went exactly like I knew it would had these two fought. And one thing that we're going to hear for a while to come is that, of course, Jorge Masvidal only had a 6-day time frame to get ready for this fight, which wasn't true. Jorge Masvidal has been training for Kamaru Usman since, the beginning of this year, maybe before that, maybe since December. I would say, Jorge Masvidal has been training for this man. Don't just think that Jorge Masvidal hasn't been training for Kamaru Usman. He has. He's been training in January, February, March, April, May, June. He had all that time. During that time, Jorge Masvidal wasn't slated to fight anybody else but Kamaru Usman. There was no talks about Jorge Masvidal fighting Colby Covington. There was probably talks, a little chatter, but it was never a for sure thing. This fight with Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman wasn't even a sure thing until, like a couple months ago. Or like a month ago. But then the fight was turned down by Jorge Masvidal, who said that he wasn't getting paid what he thought he deserved for the fight. And so, that fight never happened until now, when he took the fight on 6-day notice because of what happened to Gilbert Burns. Now, let's just dispatch that whole fucking narrative that, Jorge Masvidal only had 6 days to prepare for this fight. The nigga has been fucking preparing for this fight since December or November when he beat Nate Diaz. So I don't want to hear it. Now, I don't have anything against Jorge Masvidal. I don't have anything against any fighter, at all. I love all fighters. I respect all fighters because I know what it takes to step in there. I know what it takes, like, not even to step into an octagon or a ring to fight, but I know what it takes in the gym. I know what it takes on a daily basis. I've seen it. I've seen this man right here, number 10, Jeff Neal, work his fucking ass off. I trained with this man. I've seen where this man has come from. I've seen this man hold down a fucking 9-to-5 job and then, at the end of his shift, go into the fucking gym and work his ass off. On breaks, between work, this man trains with the MMA fighters, during the day, and then he comes back at night to do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. I've seen this man train to get to where he is, number 10 in the welterweight UFC division. So I know what it takes to get to this spot. It takes a lot of fucking sacrifice. So I don't like disrespecting any fucking fighter. But the fact of the matter is, guys, that Jorge Masvidal did not have a chance of winning this fight. This was not Jorge Masvidal's fight. Even if Jorge would have had an entire year to only train for Kamaru Usman, listen, the fight would have ended up the same way. Simply because Jorge Masvidal doesn't train his wrestling the way he should train his wrestling. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have fantastic wrestling defense. Jorge Masvidal definitely does. But when you're talking about going up against a fucking all-American wrestler, you have to be wrestling constantly. Kamaru Usman is wrestling constantly. Not only is he striking, not only is he, you know, working on his clinch game and, you know, all other facets, you know, he is mostly working on his wrestling game, because as a wrestler, you have to wrestle a lot. That's what makes Khabib Nurmagomedov so special. That's what made John Jones so special. That's what made, you know, Daniel Cormier so special, and any other welterweight wrestling champion. That's what makes them so special, is simply because they stick to their wrestling. Because once you stop training that wrestling, you know, it's hard to get it back, especially when you're going up against another wrestler that wrestles on a daily basis. So that's pretty much the main reason why Jorge Masvidal could never win this fight in my book. This is not his fight. And, you know, now Colby Covington definitely does have the game plan. You know, I know those two know each other, but Colby, you know, fucking fought Kamaru Usman when, you know, went fucking 5 rounds. He got stopped, but man, he had a very good showing. You know, if him and Masvidal fight, you know, fucking Colby just saw, you know, how to do it, you know, and Colby can definitely make that happen. And that's something that Jorge Masvidal has to think about, is that, you know, he was kind of exposed in this fight. And once again, you know, if whether it was 6-day notice or whether it was a year notice for this fight, it would have went the exact same way, you know, simply because of the stylistic matchup between these two men. It was a fantastic fight, you know, from Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal. I love both fighters. I love everybody on the fucking card. It was a fantastic fucking card. But, you know, there's a reason why Kamaru, like him, dislike him, love him, hate him. There's a reason why that man has that fucking belt on his shoulder. And I think more people should respect this man instead of calling him boring. Especially, you know, I find it weird how nobody calls Khabib Nurmagomedov boring. I find it weird how nobody, even though they used to, nobody is calling GSP a boring motherfucker, you know? When he was, you know, after GSP got starched by Matt Serra, GSP became a whole lot boring, a whole more. Why am I drawing a blank? I'm sorry, guys. It's like 5 in the morning, and I took a hit of some marijuana, and now I'm all loopy. But but I mean, you know, after GSP got knocked out by Matt Serra, he came a whole lot more. I feel like that's the right way to say that. A whole lot more boring, for sure. And, you know, a lot of people were calling GSP boring, but they don't call him boring anymore. And it's almost like they forgot, you know, they forgot how boring GSP was getting, you know, but he was dominant. That's one thing you can't say about GSP, is that he wasn't dominant. He was very dominant. And that's why Kamaru Usman is dominant. That's why Khabib Nurmagomedov is dominant. That's why Daniel Cormier is dominant. And any other fucking wrestler is dominant in mixed martial arts, simply because, you know, wrestling is just that sport, dude. It's that sport where you dictate the pace, you dictate where the fight goes at all times, especially if you are more skilled in wrestling or grappling than your opponent. And that's why, you know, Kamaru Usman is still the UFC welterweight champion of the world. Yep.